Hey all! New World's first expansion is just a couple days away, so I thought I'd do a quick recap of things you can do to prepare and get ahead. First off, make sure you've got some of the Gathering XP items. That's unusual pollen, resin, ore, bones, and bait, so you can immediately boost yourself past the 205 skill threshold needed for gathering nodes in the new zone. Ideally, you want 3 of each, since that's going to be the daily craft limit for each research notes item at each tier. And I think it goes without saying, if you're not 200 in each of the gathering skills, try and get there before Tuesday. Now, unless you're rich, it's a little late to start stockpiling materials to max out trade skills on day 1. J Oddity has a couple great videos talking about how to boost crafting and refining more optimally, so I highly recommend checking those out if that's something you're interested in. There have been spreadsheets circulating since around the time the PTR launched, detailing exactly how many materials you need to hit 250 skill in each profession. So if you haven't seen those yet, I've included links in the description below. I haven't heard anything concrete about whether the trade skill scraps for crafting are going to be limited to 3 a day like the gathering ones are, but it couldn't hurt to have those ready if you've been hoarding them. Now if you don't have the storage space to stockpile as much materials as you want, think about asking a trusted friend to hold a few thousand pounds of stuff. A while back I ran my friend's alt to all the storage sheds, and now she's holding almost 200,000 hyssop for me. Speaking of hyssop, Edengrove is about to become a proper territory with territory standing and everything. If you've seen my videos on boosting territory standing, it shouldn't be much of a surprise that I'm all over that. I've got enough mats squirreled away to make upwards of 36,000 infused alkahest, which should get me close to max with Edengrove standing, and more than max out my Arcana skill along the way. If all you want is the biggest house in Caliburn right away, think about stockpiling some of those materials so you can get your standing up to 30 immediately. Next up, the flail. If you're carrying a bunch of expedition materia and looking to get a 625 flail right away, there are a few you can craft with Arcana. If you somehow manage to get your hands on an empty scepter or the schematic for heavy knight, those are options, but they're rare world drops from chests, and if any show up on the trading post on day 1, I'm guessing they're not going to be cheap. I should point out that one of, if not the first quest, gives a 630 flail, though you might prefer the perks on one of the crafted ones better. Moving on to factions, make sure you max out your faction reputation by completing missions and the trial quests at each rank checkpoint. This is so you can raise and reach the highest faction token cap and be able to buy important materials as soon as possible. The Azoth Inductor will be an expensive, weekly time-gated purchase needed to craft full bis at item level 700, with all perks of your choosing. Crafting with the Inductor will still take a disgusting amount of other materials, but it's still a good idea to begin collecting this time-gated material as soon as possible. There's also the cheaper Chromatic Seal, which guarantees item level 700, and doesn't seem to have a purchase cooldown. On top of that, the faction shop also sells 675 gear, with Health, Refreshing, and Enchanted Ward, which can be equipped as early as level 64. I don't know how fast we'll be gearing from questing and leveling alone, but these perks? Delicious. Now the whole time I was on the PTR, my season journey wouldn't load, so I couldn't get a look at the objectives. But so far it's been a safe bet going into each new season with a journal full of completed faction missions and town projects ready to turn in. Especially since the Artifact Tumbler Shoes comes from level 20 on the Season Pass. If you were lucky enough to participate in the Rafflebones event a while back and got a bunch of Mutator gear, or if you got a bunch of named gear stored away somewhere, check out the PTR version of the New World database to see if anything you have is going to be good after the expansion launches. Most named gear will automatically upgrade to 625, and since wards are being converted into the health perk, that might make some of the named mutator gear superior to what you're currently wearing. If you've seen people talking about dark matter, that's because it's a new bind-on pickup material that you can get from salvaging, which is used to upgrade artifacts. From my understanding, it has a decent chance to come from named or legendary pieces, so if you're still hoarding gear, wait to salvage it, just in case this lets us get a bit ahead. That's why people are still doing Siege of Sulphur 3 times a day and putting their purple spoils in storage. On a lesser note, think about doing the Brimstone ECRs and Acid Pools. You still want Golden Scarabs for high-end crafting, and even though they're not getting any harder to acquire, it couldn't hurt to have some ready to go if you prefer not to buy them. Now a quick word on a couple things that are changing. Tons of perks are being discontinued or deprecated, and while not all of them are being converted into something useful, like wards into health that I mentioned before, their corresponding craft mods will be salvageable into single attribute craft mods, which is great for anyone who's been hoarding hundreds of them. On the topic of money, if you're looking to make some coin, think about what you might have that you're willing to buy or sell in the next few days. Excess refining materials like flux and tannin might be worth selling if the price is right, while rarer materials like cinnabar or tolvium might be worth buying before prices go up, since they're currently cheaper than tier 5 ingots and can be used for boosting trade skills. I'm expecting a few players will try and buy out the entire stock for certain items and flip them while they control the price, and you really don't want to end up on the other side of those jacked prices. Anything from star metal to water is easily subject to this, but especially items like barley, mint, honey, and the other ingredients needed for mountain fiddles. Finally, if you haven't already, think about checking out the new artifacts and their drop sources on the New World database. I'll include a link below. And that wraps up my attempt at a brief recap. What did I miss? Let me know in the comments, and maybe someone watching will find it useful. Hopefully some of this is new information, or at least a helpful reminder of something you already knew. As always, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.